And I'd love to welcome to the stage Federico Rivi. So please, round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. What an honor. Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Why am I here today? Because I have a sin in my past, and my sin is I have been a mainstream media journalist. I have worked in traditional newsrooms in my past, and then I basically got to know Bitcoin. I decided to quit and commit myself fully to Bitcoin journalism. One of the reasons I decided to do this thing is today's presentation's topic. I guess a lot of you at least once read something like this. So this is an article on the New York Times by our beloved Paul Krugman, Bubble, Bubble, Fraud and Trouble. He writes basically that cryptocurrencies, because he's completely unable to distinguish Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as someone would mention them, it's a bubble, but it's also something of a cult whose initiates are giving to paranoid fantasies about evil governments stealing all their money. Because as we all know, and especially in well-grown and well-famous democracies like the USA's, no government has ever stolen money from their citizens, right? This, for example, is the very famous Executive Order 6102, launched in April 5th, 1933, in which the US government basically decided to rob their citizens of a certain amount of gold. It was illegal after this order to own a certain amount of gold. And so basically the US government, the most famous important democracy in the world, so not an evil dictatorship, basically robbed their citizens. So this is this is not like a paranoid crypto anarchist idea to decide someone. But the point is it only about us? Does the mainstream media depicts Bitcoin in a bad way, but only Bitcoin in a bad way? The answer is obviously no. It's not only about us. And the reason that they are allowed to do this is because we tend to forget that they are basically full of bullshit, the mainstream media. And we do this because of this thing, the Gell-Mann amnesia effect. This is a definition given by Michael Crichton, which is a very famous American author who was talking to Murray Gell-Mann, a physicist, and he decided to give this definition his name. And the definition reads: you open the newspaper and find an article on a topic you are familiar with. You read the article and you see that the reporter has absolutely no understanding of either the facts or the issues. Then you turn the page to national or international affairs, and you read as if the rest of the paper was somehow more accurate about Palestine than the baloney you just read. This is the Gell-Mann amnesia effect. In ordinary life, if someone constantly exaggerates or lies, they quickly forget everything they say. But when it comes to the media, we believe, against the evidence, that it is probably worth reading other parts of the paper. The only possible explanation is amnesia. Today's topic has a lot to do with amnesia, because we tend to forget when we complain about how the media treats Bitcoin, that the media, the mainstream media, the big newsroom treated also other game-changing, future-changing technologies in the very same way. There is a pattern out there, and the pattern is verifiable by studying the agenda setting of the mainstream media. The agenda setting, for those of you who don't know, quickly, is like a fundamental framework of how a big newsroom works. It's divided in three main points: selection and prominence, in which the media chooses which news to present and how much space, time to dedicate to each in order to indicate to the reader or to the listener or to the watcher what is important. The transfer of importance, how the media emphasizes a particular topic, and this also becomes important naturally for the public. So the media's agenda becomes the public's agenda. And third point, maybe the most important one, framing. The media also influences how topics are presented, how to talk about something, to give a perspective bias. So, analyzing the agenda setting of the last 4 decades, it's very easy to identify a pattern that has particularly regarded three main technologies. the internet, Bitcoin, and now is starting to see also for AI. What is the pattern? The pattern is this one. For a bunch of years, all the mainstream media, basically, all the big newsrooms out there, we're talking about the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Guardian, the Financial Times, whatever, basically reject the technology. The technology is either irrelevant or dangerous, basically. And there's a shift. The technology obviously gets adopted. It's impossible to ignore the adoption and the diffusion of the technology. And so everyone shouts about regulation. We have to regulate the technology, especially when there are market crashes or something like that. And then after the regulation, it's always about acceptance and the amazing opportunities that these technologies can offer, even if they are the same exact technology that were refused beginning with. So, internet. Let's start with the internet. There are a bunch of fun examples. I only brought a few examples. If you want to log into the New York Times archives or the Guardian archives or the Washington Post archives, you can find those examples. I decided to bring a bunch of examples here. Rejection phase. We start. Basically, it starts from in the first part of the 70s, late 60s as well, with the ARPANET. This is the only digitalized example that I was able to find, but there are a lot of paper examples out there. This is the time that in the 66 in an essay that tries to imagine what the future will look like in the 2000s, says that, also in a very sexist way, says that remote shopping, while entirely feasible, will flop because women like to get out of the house, like to handle the merchandise, like to be able to change their minds. So basically, e-commerce won't exist in the future. And this is the 66. This is one of the most famous examples out there. We are already in 1995. It's very easy to find examples in the 90s before the actual web bubble exploded. In 1996, the web took off. Before 1996, there are a few examples of internet rejection completely. And this is the Newsweek in. You can see the paper format, so the paper format of the newspaper. The internet, I don't know. And then, ironically, there's the digital format. Why the web won't be nirvana? This is the same exact article. This is the same article, just in the digital format. The truth is no online database will replace your daily newspaper in an article written on the online database of Newsweek. No CD-ROM can take place of a competent teacher, and no computer network will change the way government works. Tell this to China. Also, agenda setting. We told before that agenda setting is also about choosing certain news over other news and to give prominence to that. This is page 2, November 15, 1995, The Guardian. Adverts selling women flood onto the internet. And there's also the screenshot. A video conferencing facility allowing customers to direct sex shows and write a computer advert for male escorts. Basically, the web is just a highway for prostitution. Don't go there, don't go there. This is bad. This is a danger for your child, for your children, and so on. Going on, New York Times, May 6, 1996. Surfing the web, surfing when they should be studying. This is an article about students. They are basically losing time on the internet. There's not yet the concept that you can actually gain information online, that you can study online. For us today, is basically every day we gain information online. We read online, we study online. Back in the day, going online was just a waste of time. Internet was a distraction for students that could have studied instead. And obviously, there's this whole image of the internet like a roller coaster, because internet is just a fun distraction. And also, again, agenda setting, giving prominence to statements to people that are completely against the technology. Oracle boss, incredible. Back in the day, the Oracle boss was against computers. Larry Ellison released a statement in which he said that the personal computer on the web has a bias towards men because it's just a silly engineering device. Computers attract hobbyists. The Guardian, December 15, 1996, page 2. Again, the funny thing about this one is that this was a response to the very famous declaration from Bill Gates, in which he said that his dream was for every single family in the world to have a personal computer at home. This news was like relegated at like at page 25, and this was page 2, top of the newspaper. This is one of the most famous screenshots from the Daily Mail, December 5th, 2000. Internet baby, just a passing fad as millions give up on it. And then in the text, obviously, the who says this? The experts. A study revealed that the internet may be just a passing fad. Then there's 96, obviously. Oh, this is a late example of rejection, but there's 96, and there's notably the dot-com bubble. Everything starts to go like when shit hits the fan, regulation arrives. So taxing web wallets, tax, of course. How long can the internet ride free? The New York Times, June 21st, 1999. Should the internet be regulated? The Guardian, January 22nd, 2000. No mercy on .com death row. The Observer. This is only like this is also an article about the evil web industry that should be regulated because it's basically putting an end to the publishing, the traditional publishing industry. You can see the bookshelf there and the statement: search engines wield considerable power, and this power is exercised entirely without regulation. So basically, search engines that back in the day maybe someone could have predicted that could have been an amazing opportunity for publishers had to be regulated because they were stealing basically their job. Adoption advances. Internet scandal drives new reforms, and like in the top right of the article, you can read: controlling internet sales will be much more difficult, but should be explored. And then obviously the dot-com bubble burst. The market basically healed, and no one could ever ignore the internet and web expansion anymore. And so the New York Times in 2002 wrote that quantum computers and cars are smarter than you are, depicting the amazing future that humans can explore without even moving a finger. And El Paso Times, July 25th, 2005. Tune into TV's web revolution. Web TV is no longer a thing of the future. Obviously, it's already a thing of the present. And even the media business itself realizes it kind of has to adapt. It's survival of the fastest as the broadband Britain finally comes online. The Daily Telegraph, December 27th, 2005. There's a part in the article that I highlighted because it wasn't possible to read. Here, the media business has embarked on a spending binge to try to marry its existing business model to the new opportunities offered by the high-speed web. So we have to get on board, basically. And also Financial Times, let more of the world access the internet. For centuries, access to the world's information was controlled by the wealthy and the well-educated. Today, the internet has broken down many barriers that existed before between people and information, effectively democratizing access to human knowledge. Like, amazing, incredible, revolution. Waiting for the new web revolution, Financial Times. This was the pattern about the internet. It took like basically 3 decades, a little more, to complete its pattern, from complete rejection to like complete satisfaction and complete awareness. Bitcoin had a similar pattern, just faster, and then we will see why. Rejection. Obviously, there's plenty of articles between 2010 and 2017. I decided to leave it out because otherwise this talk should have lasted maybe 2 or 3 hours. I just decided to take like the latest articles of this pattern. The Economist, Bitcoin is fiat money. A few examples. September 22, 2017. Obviously, what's going on in September 2017? There's the ICO bubble. So there's also like kind of we are about to witness the explosion, the burst of the ICO bubble. We're not there yet, but Bitcoin obviously is fiat money, is bad. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink calls Bitcoin an index of money laundering. Bitcoin just shows how much demand for money laundering there is in the world. October 30th, 2017. How the tables have turned. The Bitcoin Hoax, columnist by Robert Kuttner, Huffington Post. We should hardly be surprised that Bitcoin is on a wild speculative ride. That's by essence of privatized credit creation. I doubt he has an idea of what privatized credit creation is. Bitcoin is the most perfect bubble possible. Washington Post, 2017. Is Bitcoin going to zero? Spoiler, yes. Forbes, in my opinion, Bitcoin is dead. It won't go quietly, but the recent precipitous drop may be the beginning of its inevitable and inexorable death spiral. Like death sentence complete. And then the ICO bubble burst, leaving a lot of money, a lot of people without money, and also a lot of magazines trying to speak about regulation, especially after a few exchanges like I'm sorry, I shouldn't name it exchanges. After like blatant fraud and scams like FTX or Celsius or Terra Luna and shitcoins made basically dozens of billions of dollars of failures. And obviously, the magazine started to talk about regulation. Our beloved Paul Krugman, again, today is citing Jim Canos with the agenda-secting idea of citing people that are against it in the regulation phase. Traditional banking is regulated for a reason. Crypto, in bypassing this regulation, has created an environment subject to bank runs, not to mention theft, hacks, and ransom attacks. Global regulators calls for vigilance amid confluence of risks. The Financial Times, 2022, July. The FCB, which is the vanguard of global attempts to police cryptocurrency markets, said the recent collapse in the value of several tokens, including Bitcoin, has crystallized some of the vulnerabilities it warned about. Crypto poses serious challenges for regulators, always the Financial Times, and The Guardian, 2023, February. Crypto is intended to be hard to regulate, but at least the Treasury wants to have a go. And again, The New York Times, fraud in the unregulated market for cryptocurrencies has cost American billions. A growing share of our everyday life is now ruled by opaque and unregulated private equity and interests, which it's not that false if you think about the cryptocurrency world. But then something happened, especially this year, in January, in Wall Street. And then articles like this start to pop up. March 6, 2024, how Bitcoin can be a tool for human rights activists. The Economist, why Africa is the crypto's next frontier. March 7, The Economist. This is the story about the Virunga National Park mining farm, which was told here at the PlanB Forum last year, and how basically a mining farm is reviving a dam inside the national park. Financial Times, Bitcoin bulls are not the bigger fool. Financial Times has always been crazily against Bitcoin, but now says in 2024 that Bitcoin bulls are not the bigger fools. The most popular cryptocurrency is starting to look like more than a passing fad. Forbes, again, Bitcoin miners driving innovation and emissions reduction. Incredible. CNBC, Texan Bitcoiners start mining in Argentina. Explaining in a perfect way, because Mackenzie Sigalos is a great reporter, by the way, explaining how Bitcoin is driving emission reductions in gas flaring and gas venting use cases. And we will see in a moment why something like that happened, how the sentiment changed. Again, even faster, artificial intelligence, the pattern goes even faster. Rejection. We start like last year after ChatGPT and OpenAI took over. Basically, everyone was talking about AI. Fox News says that AI has no kill switch, could destroy foundations of society without guardrails. Experts, obviously. BBC, artificial intelligence could lead to extinction. Experts warns. Obviously, it's always about the experts, right? Stop talking about tomorrow's AI doomsday when AI poses risks today. Nature. And the godfather of AI leaves Google and warns of dangers ahead. Now he worries it will cause serious harm. This is the first part of 2023. Then start the talks about regulations start. There's also another example. AI is as risky as pandemics and nuclear war. Top CEOs say, are you urging global cooperation? Then the global cooperation starts. And also the talks about the global regulation starts. The AI wars have 3 factions and they all crave power. New York Times, we need to make sure the network of laws and regulations that govern our collective behavior is knit more strongly around AI, obviously. Time, what an American approach to AI regulation should look like. March 5th. And Reuters, US, Britain, EU to sign first international AI treaty. Do we have yet the acceptance phase? Not yet. We have not yet arrived around the acceptance phase because there's still a lot of worries about the AI. Some articles about like the doomsday of AI taking over and robots taking over are still out there. And so I believe that in the next year or two, the acceptance phase, will take over because AI is moving way faster than the internet and way faster than Bitcoin as well. It's already integrated in a bunch of businesses, and when businesses adopt a technology, that technology goes way, 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 way faster. And so I guess in the next year or two, this pattern will come to an end, and there will be also the acceptance articles. But why? Why does this happen? I have a theory. I'm not like an oracle, but I have a theory. We are talking about the mainstream media business. We are talking about businesses that have been in place for decades when the internet was not there, when Bitcoin was not there, when AI was not there. This is a statement of the New York Times, which, by the way, also for journalists, it's like the benchmark. There's the New York Times and there's everything else. Like there's no competition. The Washington Post even doesn't reach the number of readers that the New York Times has. 2020, May 5th, 2020, the New York Times company reports, May 11th, 2020, the New York Times company reports third quarter results. No, it's November, because third quarter, by the way. Yeah, because the Americans have like the change of the date. For the first time, the total digital-only subscription revenue exceeded print subscription revenue, making digital-only subscription not just the center engine of the company's growth, but on its way to being our largest revenue stream. So the biggest newspaper, way the biggest newspaper in the world, got more money from the digital business than if compared to the paper business in 2020, just 4 years ago, when the internet was basically introduced with ARPANET in the 60s. And we are talking the biggest newspaper in the world, which writes in English, which has a language that everyone in the world understands, basically. So you can just imagine the whole industry of the mainstream media in the whole world, in the other countries, in the whole world. Have they adapted? And the answer is no. Nowadays, the mainstream media business relies on paper copies. They make money on paper copies. They have not yet adapted. And of course, they're going to be against a technology that makes that takes them out of business. It's like proper incentives. Those same incentives that bring the narrative shift when something happens. This is an example. By the way, this source is Bitcoin Perception, is a tool that measures the perception of articles, a perception of Bitcoin by mainstream articles, and it's an amazing tool. You should check it out. This was the Bitcoin Perception in January, February, and May 2024 among the mainstream media, online especially. January 2024, articles are only balanced or negative. February 2024, article are basically positive or balanced and maybe like 10-15% negative. March, just 2 months after January, the articles are either balanced or positive. What happened in January 2024? the ETF were approved. And what's the biggest ETF issuer? BlackRock. And where BlackRock has basically participations in every mainstream media business. BlackRock is one of the biggest shareholders of the New York Times. This is not conspiracy theorists, guys. It's like basic market incentives. If your shareholder changes its mind on a topic, you're incentivized to write like in a better way about this. And while everything says that Bitcoin is a store of value, the New York Times will report that Bitcoin is a store of value, even if Larry Fink, 5 years ago, said that Bitcoin was an index of money laundering in the world. It's the same exact thing. This is like an example of how the narrative on Bitcoin mining, specifically the narrative shifted. And so what's the difference between the three technologies? And I'm about to get to an end. It's just the time. Internet had like a rejection phase that went from the 70s to late 90s. Regulation phase in the late 90s and an acceptance phase in the early 2000s. Bitcoin has a rejection phase from 2009 when it was born to 2022, more or less. Regulation phase to 2024, more or less, we hope. I mean, I'm sure a bunch of articles against Bitcoin and in favor of the regulation of Bitcoin will get out in the coming years, but the huge amount of articles about regulation basically had come to an end with the ETF and the MiCA regulation in Europe, and the acceptance phase has finally started in 2024 with the ETF. AI rejection phase for 2022 and 2023. Regulation will all be the big corporate groups and the AI acts in Europe that came to an agreement until 2024, and maybe the acceptance phase, as we said before, is not yet did not start yet. I guess in the next 1 or 2 years the acceptance phase will start and come to an end in a very quick fashion. So the difference is the time, because technology speeds up how the humans basically interact, and so it's very easy to speed up the process when you have technologies already available in your backbone. So internet, 30 years more or less. Bitcoin, 15 years more or less. AI, now it's like 5 years. Maybe it will end the cycle in 6-7 years, I'd say. Not more for sure. So what's the lesson? When it comes to the new technologies, do the opposite of what the media says. Or in other words, don't trust, verify. Thank you.
If we have any questions, we can take a couple.
All right.
Yeah. If anybody has them, just put up a hand and I can run a mic over to you. 1 sec.
Thank you for your speech. I enjoyed it a lot. But I'm a bit confused, to be honest, because if I look around my family and friends, I see them using Gen AI a lot. I see them using AI for generating pictures. So in my view, or in my perception, AI is already adopted a lot and accepted, but Bitcoin not at all. Yeah. So I would say it's very different. So are you talking about media landscape only, or also the perception of people? Because I think Bitcoin has a long way to go still.
There's an immense difference between the media perception and the actual perception of people. It's like propaganda works sometimes, not always. AI has a direct application. Obviously, we have to admit that AI is offering benefits that are way more visible for people right now. Like for ChatGPT, it's amazing the benefits that you can have by using it. And so, especially in the developed world, so in the Western world, you have way more benefits. This is only the media perception of the technologies. the actual use of the technology is completely different. If you go in other parts of the world, Bitcoin is used in a completely different way as a store of value, for example, as a digital gold. If you go in Central America or in places with hyper inflation, Bitcoin is used in a different way, but the media doesn't talk about Bitcoin as medium of exchange as well. It's like detached from the reality, and that's one of the biggest problems of mainstream media right now.